chat. Cool. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. We're going to give it just a minute to let everybody start trickling in, but it's great to virtually see everybody, and very much looking forward to today's presentation. Hi, Aparna. You are on mute if you want to say hi.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Jason.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's Thursday. It's like Little Friday.
Yep.
And Jason was sharing that he's actually in San Diego, ironically, presenting at a different conference, and just stepped away from that to be able to still be available for us here. So
Yeah, it's exciting. It's been an exciting week, and I'm super glad to be with you guys to wrap it up.
Awesome. Yeah, and we are starting to get more and more people trickling in. So what I'm going to do right now is, and as I turn sideways, I'm just grabbing my notes to share with everybody some of the house cleaning things that do want to go over with everybody. To start, we are recording. So we'll take this and be able to make it available on the YouTube page and the chapter's website for anybody that wants to check it out after that wasn't able to, or at some point if you need to go back and get some additional CPEs, it'll be available for you. Any questions or comments and stuff, we do want to make the presentation be as interactive as possible and help anybody with questions or thoughts that they have. So please drop them in the chat, and Aparna and I will be monitoring that as Jason's presenting, and Jason will just kind of say, hey, we got this comment and stuff like that to let you comment on it and post back to people. So please do share what you have there. We were able a couple of days ago, I'm going to drop the link in the chat now. I believe I am. I believe it's going to let me. This is for next month's event. There we go. It is online on the website and available. Registration's open now. What makes this one different and even more exciting is we get to go back to being on premise. So we actually get to do face-to-face stuff and start seeing each other again. Very much looking forward to it. It will be at the Amazon facility where we were at, goodness, over a couple of years ago. So we are going to be doing that, but also you will see on there where you can also register to watch online. If you like, if you can't attend for whatever reason, we still want to make the meetings as inclusive and available to everybody as much as possible. And the topic for next month will be a gentleman from the Director of Security and Compliance at RSI Security, Mohan, will be presenting on the topic of PCI DSS 4.0. He'll give us an overview of how PCI is structured and what the new changes are that have come out in the last couple of months in the newest version. There was another event, if anybody is in operational technology, this event is on the calendar as well. It's a virtual event that's available to members for free. And I do believe CPEs may be available for that one, but we got it up there, registration's there. Check it out, and if it's valuable for you, fantastic. The last one that I want to drop in there is part 2 of what we have going on today. I'm going to hand the microphone over to Jason Scott, and what he's given us today is a very condensed version of one of his programs that's available. And this, what's available on June 16th is the full 6-hour course that he makes available. And what we're able to work with Jason on is, normally it's at $225, but anybody that does want to attend, the coupon's on the webpage, it's available for 50% off to try and make it more accessible and available to everybody. So on that note, Aparna, is there anything that you would like to share with anybody?
I think pretty much you covered it, Dave, and we are looking forward for the on-site event for the next month. After
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be cool. Okay, awesome. Let me hand the microphone over to Jason Scott of 120V. And why don't you take it from here, man? Tell everybody who you are and what we get it covered today. Appreciate
Right
it.
on, Dave. Thank you. Dave, quick question. If I invite people to like join as a panelist, would you mind that? Because I could keep it the way we've got it, but if I could get a couple of people that wanted to be interactive, that might be a little bit more fun, but it's up to you.
I'm fine either way, and
Cool.
you have been given God mode.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, with
Thank you, sir.
great
Okay.
power.
Comes great responsibility. All right, everybody, listen, I've got you up. And so for those of you that know how to like raise your hand in Zoom, I have my first question. Who here has seen me speak before? Show of hands. Get them up. Oh, good. Everybody's new. Oh, well, Dave. Got Steve. Okay, Steve. Anybody else? Steve, Dave, just looking. Hold on. This will just take a minute. You guys just be patient. All right, like just Steve and Dave. All right, cool. Well, I like to be interactive, so I'm going to go ahead and lower the two hands that were raised. Anybody that would like to bring up their video and interact with me, because I'm going to ask questions, which will make the presentation more spicy. I want you guys to think about the last time somebody monologued for like an hour and how exciting that was for you. I know it's rhetorical because it was like a snooze, like you want to go to sleep, but you were like, I need the credit. This actually will be fun. It's going to be fun. It is the science of planning a project, which is harder to make fun than other topics, but it should be fairly fun. So anybody that wants to like maybe join me and in the conversation get their videos up, go ahead and raise your hands. Doesn't look like we're getting any takers, Dave. It's okay, because you know what? I'll just talk to Dave and Aparna the whole time. I'm looking. Okay, got a bunch of shy people. That's fine. Shy is awesome. I'm shy. Truth be told. All right, so let me go ahead and close that.
We have one hand.
Oh, good, Neil Packard.
Neil,
All right,
yeah.
so allow to join as a panelist, promote to panelist. So for those of you now that have FOMO, that Neil just got promoted to panelist, anybody else want to raise their hand? Going once. We have limited time today. We have to talk about the science planning project. Going twice.
We did this because it seems like nobody else wants to volunteer. So
Hey, listen, I appreciate you. That's all I have to say. So like whatever your reasons are, I appreciate it. Oh, we've met. I feel like. Have we?
You just muted yourself, Neil.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. All right, so you guys should be able to see my screen. Diving right into this. All right, so as I've mentioned, this talk today is the science of planning a project. So it's really the thought process and strategy that goes into planning a project, and then some high-level steps. The strategies are going to be very important to your success. As Dave said, for those of you that are interested in getting more into the how, we do have a 6-hour workshop coming up June 16th that we'll be running with your chapter, and as Dave said, they've negotiated a great price for you. The coupon code's on the website. I will show the coupon code again at the end of the presentation, and I will be sharing these slides with Dave and Aparna to send out to whoever wants them after. Really quick, because I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to talk about me very much. My name is Jay Scott. I'm the founder of 120 VC. We've been around 22 years, and we are very successful at planning and delivering large global transformational projects. We migrated Sony Pictures to the cloud in 9 months with 0 service disruption. And I know that means something to this crowd because several of you just went, bullshit. No, honestly, you could call the CIO at Sony Pictures and they'll tell you we didn't break anything. We did take 6 months to plan it. So there was a high degree of effort that went into planning it to make sure that we didn't break anything. We led Trader Joe's nationwide merchant processing system upgrade. We completed it in 6 months. And Visa and MasterCard called it a flawless implementation in record time. Now, why did I tell you this? Because we're talking about the science of planning a project today. So what I'm sharing with you guys is our secret sauce. Like no bones about it, no secrets. This is the secret sauce. at the 6-hour workshop, we're giving away more of the secret sauce. At the end of the talk, I'm actually going to give you our playbook to download. Totally open. I want you guys to be as successful as possible. So we have to start with defining the project. And defining the project is about fostering a fierce commitment to alignment and clear expectations. Now, here's the interesting thing. I said alignment, clear expectations. Some people might have thought accountability. First pro tip. We can't help people stay accountable to a commitment that they didn't make. I didn't break up or anything. That was me making a dramatic pause to let that sink in for a second, right? And so we all have stakeholders. I use that term to mean I have team members. They're my stakeholders, right? I serve them, and when they're successful, I'm successful. I have customers. I have executives, right? And they're my stakeholders. I serve them, and when they're successful, I'm successful. I feel like cybersecurity professionals are in this exact same position, in that you have stakeholders, and your job really is to help them be as successful as possible based on your subject matter expertise. Now, 120 VC is also responsible for leading a ton of cybersecurity projects to success. And so I feel like I want to speak to some of the challenges today that I see in working with cybersecurity customers, right? That relationship between cybersecurity and your customer. I feel like it is not frictionless. All in favor, raise your hand. I can't see everybody. Aparna, are we getting lots of hands raised? I need validation.
I see a lot of hands raised.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I feel validated. And so I'm here today to help out with some of that. I think most importantly, you guys are here to provide an incredibly valuable service, because digital transformation that is not secure is as bad as not digitally transforming at all. And we all know any company not digitally transformed in the next 10 years becomes the next bye-bye. Right? So it's got to be done in a secure fashion, and that's what you guys do. However, we have to eliminate the friction in order for you to be as successful as possible. So I will be talking about planning a project, but some strategies and really how to engage your stakeholders and like get them on board, as opposed to like wanting to debate about the outcomes. So that leads me here to this slide, which is planning and the success criteria of planning. I'm going to start the slideshow. Cool, that looks better. All right, so here is the first strategy. Identify how to create value for your stakeholders. Learn how to matter. Now, you guys are thinking, how do I do that? Aparna, will you go ahead and lower everybody's hands, so just in case somebody raises their hand, like we know it's like a new hand. Thank you so much. And by the way, for those of you that are panelists, please don't be on mute. Like, I want to hear you breathing. Like, I need to feel like I'm a part of a team, like a highly successful team. Okay, so I just said something, and I'm absolutely certain several of you are like, well, it's weird because they don't see what we do as valuable. But you know it is, but they don't see it. So often in IT, and by the way, I also own a marketing company. Some of you probably just went, ew. I get it, but here's the deal. Marketing isn't about tricking people into buying things they don't need. Well, that's how some people market. Marketing for good is enabling people to see the possibilities and inspiring them to take action. So we can approach our projects with multiple emphasis. I was sharing with Dave before the call, lately I've been on this kick. Every IT department that I've worked with for the last 25 years is always working to improve their customers' perception of them. Lately, when they tell me that this is their goal, I shake my head and I'm like, no, you don't. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to improve your customers' perception of you. You don't. And they're like, no, Jay, let me show you the survey results. We really do need to improve our clients' perception. I was like, well, so you've been trying to improve their perception for how long and it's not working? What's really important is instead deliver stuff that they see as valuable. And they will give you 10 out of 10. Right? Service recommended. So what we started doing, and I can give a couple of IT examples. I was working with a
Can I, one thing you talk about success here, we talk about the stakeholders and everything like that, but one of the things I've come across and I feel that doesn't get talked about a lot is having executive level sponsorship for your projects. Because to be honest, unless you got somebody that's going to back you up, you know, it's like the stakeholder, oh, that's a great value. Yeah, but my boss isn't interested.
No, that's Neil. I could teach an entire 6-hour workshop on that topic alone. But no, it is, we read it all the time, but it truly is valuable because people are going to follow the leader. So those of us, or the people with authority, so those of us that don't have any authority, which is me too, by the way, have to operate through influence. But the first people we truly have to influence are those executives to get them on board. And they can't see it as a compliance thing, right? And again, I'm going to give you guys some examples of how, and I'm sorry I'm going to say it, how to make cybersecurity sexy. Who wants that? Raise your hand. What you guys do is insane. You're like freaking NASA. And nobody gets it. So we got to help them get it, right? I'm constantly trying to get my wife to see that I'm sexy. I don't know if I'm succeeding or not, but it's very important, this pursuit of sexiness. But in a totally appropriate way, by the way. So I had the CIO client say to me, we have this ServiceNow to BMC migration. And immediately I did the math, being a project management nerd. I was like, oh, that's like $1 million and a year and a half. Like, you're going to have to go ask your CEO of a global company for $1 million and a year and a half of a whole bunch of team members' time. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, when you say, hey, we need to migrate ServiceNow, which is a customer service platform, to BMC, which is a customer service platform, and you need $1 million in a year and a half, do you think that CEO is immediately going to be like, oh, I get that. Yeah, I'm super stoked to give you $1 million to go like to like. So what I did was I spent like 30 minutes talking to him. And as it turned out, what he really wanted to do was position his IT team to provide a concierge-like service to the employees in the company. And I said, oh my God. So call it my IT concierge, right? Like, don't call it BMC to ServiceNow. It's my IT concierge. Now, your why can be migrate ServiceNow to BMC. And every project that I've ever been on, we reach a point where things are not going in according to plan, and we have to accelerate the outcome. And so if your outcome is ServiceNow to BMC, that's exactly what you're going to get. But that's not what you want. You want to set yourself up, and the reason that you're migrating is because you want to be able to provide a concierge-like customer experience to your stakeholders. And when you go tell your CEO this, he's going to be like, yes, you do, because we are unhappy with your past performance, because we all know that they're constantly trying to improve their perception, right? And so, hey, would I as a CEO invest $1 million in a year half the time to enable my team to give all of my employees a seamless IT experience? Yeah, that makes sense, because when IT is not working, people can't do their jobs. You guys are in the exact same seat. Your job is to keep the IT working, or even potentially create a seamless customer experience. That's definitely sexier than deploying cybersecurity, but more importantly, if your why is deploy cybersecurity, and I know that's not what you do, like, I'm simplifying, I'm just a project manager, right? Like, you're deploying the cybersecurity, or you're enabling a seamless customer experience. So one of the things that I do, and we're not going to get too deeply into this here, is I work with these IT leaders to not only help them figure out how they truly create value for the business, and there's only 3 criteria. I always ask them, how does this improve customer experience? How does this improve employee experience? How does this improve profitability? Every single time I ask this question in an IT department, the first thing they say is, well, it doesn't. And I'm like, yes, it does, somehow. And if you want to take the Pepsi challenge with me, we'll sit here for 30 minutes and I'll come up with a way. Now,
Jay, real
yeah.
quick, not to interject, but we did have somebody with a question, wondering if the workshop might be already full. The coupon, the promo code was not working, and I know we'll take it outside of this.
Yeah.
Alina, we'll follow up with you.
Yeah, we'll fix that, because there's no way it's full. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure no.
Okay, cool.
And by the way, even if it is, I want you all there, so I'll unfull it.
Outstanding. And I did want to just say that I to your point, and even to what Neil was saying, is you do have to present, to get that leadership buy-in, you do have to present what it is within a business context, and what the value to the business is in that perspective.
So in business terms, right? So the point, going back to the why, it's not wrong to say your why is security and sustainability, aka cybersecurity. That's not wrong. That's a why that is totally legitimate. And if you guys were on the call, I'd say all in favor say aye, and you'd be like, aye. You'd be like rallying. All right, but it's also not wrong to say your why is creating a seamless customer experience. Would the three of you that can actually speak to me agree to that?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so so this comes down to brand. Everybody thinks brand is the domain of marketing, when in fact, brand in transformation, which is what you guys are constantly doing, brand in transformation has a very powerful role because brand is a social contract between the people on the team and your stakeholders. So going back to this example of we're migrating ServiceNow to BMC, that's the brand. I'm going to get a result. If it's my IT Concierge, that's the brand, that's the social contract between the people on the project and my customers. Everything that they do as they're planning and delivering this project is going to focus on the features that will do that. That's the outcome. And obviously you start with the name of the project, the brand, and then you deep dive the objectives and the scope items and the benefits. And we're going to get there in a second. Okay. But I want you guys to start thinking that your subject matter expert is cybersecurity. And you guys clearly thrive in complexity, right? But most human beings do not thrive in complexity. Like they shut down and they retreat from complexity. And so in trying to be
Do we just, Lucia?
Yeah, dude, it's so weird. Hold on, real quick. I
You're
just want to make
back.
sure. I
You're
feel
back.
like I'm going to
You're
turn
back.
off the thing that might have just hijacked me. Okay, it's off. Okay, good. So you guys thrive in complexity. I said you probably heard that, right? But most humans do not. When faced with complexity, it makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to have the conversation. They retreat. They avoid. I'm sure that you guys have experienced this in your conversations. And interestingly, in trying to be cybersecurity professionals, you're transparent. You want to involve them in what needs to be done, and it scares them. Okay, so a better approach might be to start thinking in terms of bedside manner. When I say think in terms of bedside manner, people think, oh, the nice doctor. I'm like, no, what is the purpose of a doctor? The doctor's job is to convince you to go to sleep so they can cut you open. And we do this every day. If they were to fill us in on all the complexities and be transparent, we'd want to get a second opinion, right? So they don't need to know everything, right? They need to know why, what your outcomes are going to be, what it is that you're serving when you're teeing up a project. Like, how are you going to solve a problem that the executive cares about? Back to you, Neil.
Sure.
Right? When that executive is like, oh yeah, I see how this is going to make me look good. Sorry, but it's human nature. We want to look good, and if we can't look good, we at least don't want to look bad. You guys mostly want to do the right thing. However, you're serving people that want to look good, and at minimum don't want to look bad, and there's no escaping this. It's human nature, right? So first, planning success criteria. Identify how you're creating value for your stakeholders, aka for the business. How is it going to improve customer experience? How is it going to improve team employee experience? How is it going to improve profitability? And eliminating costs improves profitability. The reason I say focus on profitability is because I want you guys to start thinking like business people as opposed to cybersecurity. You need that expertise, right? Doctors think like doctors, but they communicate with bedside manner because they're leaders, and they again want to convince us to go to sleep so they can cut us open. So last, remember, nobody starts a project because they want their organization to be the same when it's over. What you guys are doing is transformational. For people to want to accept this transformation, they have to feel like it's going to make their lives better, or they will resist you. All right, so now I'm going to get into some nerdy stuff. Go for Dave.
I was just going to say that a lot of times what'll happen if it's like Neil will be a master in privacy, and that's where he's going to spend his time. Same with Aparna, I'll be on the cybersecurity side, which inherently puts us with certain boundaries right around that, and we want to take a step back because the executives are looking at it from multiple perspectives on the in how it impacts the organization at large. And to your point, we're right, and we're saying it, but understanding it within that context has always been the best way for me to help get the message across.
Like thinking, how does it impact the bigger picture positively, right?
Yeah, that's the lens the CEO has to look at it through, in the
Right.
same way that we have our lens that we need to look at it through.
And I guarantee you the CEO, which is the ultimate approver of the budget, isn't approving anything that doesn't enhance client, employee, or profitability. Neil, you're talking.
But you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. My son was.
Oh, right on. Cool. I was not reading your lips. All right, so let's get into some nerdy project concepts. So there's a project charter lifecycle. The charter is where we document the definition of a project after we capture it. So I just kind of want to break down how this works. What's interesting is we all know one of the agile premises is that we know the least about a project in the beginning. All right. And one of the coolest techniques of a project manager is that we do peel the onion slowly, or the orange or the grapefruit, which allows us to develop deeper levels of understanding as we go. So in our world, as defined in our guidebook, the very first meeting we have is the initial project owner interview. Like, hey, why are we doing this? Why are you doing this project? They talk for like 10 minutes. All right. And we're like, cool. We play back everything they said. And now we start asking questions because we really need to own it. We need to understand the whys behind all the vision. And what happens is that at 10 minutes into the conversation, I have a definition. By the time I get to 15 minutes, by asking questions and trying to understand, both of us have a completely different definition 100% of the time. Why? Because I took that executive on a journey. I ask questions to understand, not to challenge, because judgment shuts down the conversation. I'll say, well, help me see how that's going to play out, or I don't get it. What am I missing? You said this, but this is what I'm seeing over here. How do we get these two together, right? I'm just being super curious, which is called leadership. I take the individual on a journey and they end up with a deeper understanding because they had not thought this deeply about their project prior to engaging with me. Forget the project manager, the leader. This executive is the owner and has all the authority. I have no authority, but make no bones about it, I am the leader. And therefore, I am operating solely on influence. And then I'm going to work with subject matter experts, and they're going to figure out how to do the thing. They make all the decisions. They have the subject matter authority, right? Again, I'm not the decision maker, but I am the leader. So I'm trying to understand, and in doing this, I take them on a journey. Then I take this understanding, like what high level what we're doing, the value it creates, and the benefits, and I meet with the other executive stakeholders. There's always more. We never have just one executive stakeholder anymore. Like everything, especially you guys, everything you do touches everybody, right? So anybody that's got a stake, I'm going to pull together, and I'm going to get alignment, right? So as I have these conversations, I'm gaining more and more clarity. All right. Then once I'm clear on big picture what we're doing, and the purpose and the benefits, I take it to the team members, the people that are going to do the work, the subject matter experts. None of these people ever work for us. It's a combination of business people, cybersecurity people, IT people, and we pull them together in one single unified high functioning team. And then I say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why. Here's the benefits. How do we do it? And now I've got in here, we identify the scope, out of scope, the approach. That's my nerdy project management stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit deeper about that. But I just say, how do we do this? And I listen and I take notes. And again, I let them figure out how to do it, or I take them on a journey, right? I allow them to architect their own roadmap to a shared goal. And I get more clarity because we're getting more granular. And from there, once we work through the assumptions, the potential impediments and the constraints, this I do bring up. This is super powerful. In the project team commencement meeting, what I've gotten from everybody that's got a stake in this project, from the executives all the way through to the people that have to do it, we have 100% clarity. Then I put something in front of them that they should recognize. Because this isn't my charter. I didn't create this charter for me. This is their charter. This is the thing that I'm going to lead them to delivering, but they're going to deliver it, and then I'm going to go away. I'm going to move on to the next project. I am leading in service to this team. Like you'll never hear me say, I rocked that project. I'll say I led that project. but I'm not the one doing the heavy lifting. I'm just
Right.
leading. I mean, leading is a little difficult. It took me a while to figure out how to do that effectively. But again, I'm the leader, not the owner, right? I'm serving the team. So once they see this thing that says what they think it should say, because I was listening and asking questions to understand, and all the way driving toward clarity and, more important, alignment, right? If there's a conflict between two stakeholders, I'm going to facilitate a discussion to work out a win.
Gotcha.
The whole pie. Everybody's like, you have to, we got to make trade-offs. I'll tell you guys a quick story. There was a company that was committed to lowering their wanting to get green, lower their footprint, their environmental footprint. Sorry, guys. There was a company that wanted to lower their environmental footprint, and they were in manufacturing. So the CEO was flying around the company, giving the why to everybody, and he was at a plant, and basically the engineers came to him and they were like, "Sorry, I know you want it, but we can't do it. It's too complicated. We can't do it." And the CEO said, "Okay, well, we'll just have to shut down the plant. Trade-off, right?" He traded in favor of the environment over the team members at the plant, the employees, because we got to shut down the plant, right? So a month later, he's back in his home office, and he gets a call from the head of the plant, and he's like, "Hey, listen, I have good news." CEO's like, "What?" He's like, "We figured it out." And the CEO's like, "Well, what's it going to cost me?" And they're like, "No, we're really embarrassed. It's going to be cheaper." When the trade-off is not acceptable, your team members will figure out a way most of the time. So don't go for the trade-off. Don't facilitate for the trade-off. Facilitate for the win, because in the trade-off, right in there, somebody's going to lose. So ask the question, how does everybody win? So at this point, I have alignment. I get approval and acceptance. Everybody is aligned. All right, so moving to the actual, come on, click with me. There we go. Moving to an actual charter.
Jason,
I don't know.
real quick before you dive into this one, somebody did post, and you and I will follow up with this, but want to share it with everybody. I guess the coupon lowered it from 225 down to 125, not truly a 50%. So we can double check what the coupon is, everything like that, and just make sure that this is working properly for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm sorry about this. I don't know what the glitch is. So the coupon didn't work, but then the coupon did work, but then it didn't give the right discount. Everybody just email Dave. Are you the right person to email?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody else, wait till Dave and team sends you an email to register for the workshop, because clearly there's a glitch, and I need to improve customer experience. So just hopefully I'll blow your minds today. You'll feel like you had a decent enough customer experience to give our website another try. So
Yeah.
nobody else registered till we fix it, and we'll let you know.
Okay, and I dropped the chapter's email address in the chat, so feel free to reach out to us there, and Aparna and I will follow, look into it, follow up, and I'll work with you outside of that.
Cool.
Also, one other thing is we are not able to figure out how to lower the hands that are raised, and it may be because you are the host.
Host. All right, I got this.
So,
Participants. Boom. Cool. Got it.
okay, back to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, guys. Nobody likes documentation. I get it. And that's why in my world, documentation should be barely sufficient. One more thing to address. As I was talking, some people, I'm sure, were thinking, dude, it seems really hard to come up with a why that serves the business, right? It seems really hard to facilitate a win-win scenario, to facilitate true alignment. I want to agree with you guys, because here's the deal. For you guys, what's really easy is privacy, cybersecurity. But for the rest of us, that is incredibly hard, right? And that's why we're grateful for you guys. And the things that I'm talking about will stretch you a little bit as a leader, but you all are, because if you don't lead these stakeholders, they will never get there. They will never get it. They will never understand why privacy and cybersecurity is sexy. And so what I'm really emphasizing in the strategies that I'm giving you is to exercise your leadership muscle, because there's a high degree of likelihood you're already cybersecurity and privacy like Herculeans. I don't know if that's a thing, right? So I get it. It's hard. It's new. but I guarantee you can do it. And if you get stuck, email me. I love this game. Let's figure out how to make it meaningful to our stakeholders. It's like one of my favorite things in the world to do. So that said, diving into a charter, the purpose, right? Like and it's short. It's very succinct. So in a charter, I'm going to establish the purpose. In this case, identifying and putting in place information security measure to protect against threats and ensure secure distribution. So I feel like, and this is like 20 years old, but I feel like this purpose could be a lot sexier. But at the end of the day, what it basically says is to enable the broad use of digital assets, and this was for a movie studio, right? And their movies and their scripts were getting stolen. And their intellectual property by putting in place the security measures to protect them, right? Like not ruin the movie release, not ruin the punchline, right? Again, if I were to rewrite this today, it would be much more meaningful in terms of how we are protecting a studio's assets. So the studio's because what are we doing? Like we're really, when something gets leaked, we're robbing somebody of the satisfaction of waiting until, to see it in the theaters, right? So here are the objectives. These are just big buckets of the things that need to get done. And then the benefits. These are the why, the things that will be true when the project is over. And again, but most importantly, I'm telling you what goes into these categories. But when you put this document back in front of your stakeholders, when they look at these things, they'll be like, oh, that means something to me. I cannot tell you how often I'll put this in front of a customer and have them want me to change like one word, like just one word. Like as if changing that one word will mean all the difference to their success. And it is true. This is the reality. What we're actually doing in creating this clarity and alignment is we're establishing a language by which we will lead them and ensure that we deliver the outcomes that matter to them, not the outcomes that matter to us, right? Hopefully they matter to us too, because we're the subject matter experts, the cybersecurity folks, right? But if it doesn't matter to them, we're just spinning our wheels and everybody thinks, hey, like if it's a vendor, it's got to matter to the customer for them to stay in business. No, it's the same with internal departments, right? It has to.
I go back to earlier. I mean, I try to tie it in with what you talked about earlier, the whole marketing piece, because I look at this and as a cybersecurity, privacy, technology professional, oh yeah, that's good. But the business owners are going to look at this and go, yeah, what does all that mean? I have a tendency, particularly in the benefits section, I will put in what, the real benefit to the business, as opposed to the actual, the security benefit itself. That's covered in the objective. It's just a thought. It's another way to present a message that's more appealing.
No, and it's true, because your really objectives are one way of stating what they're going to get, and benefits are another way of stating what they're going to get, right? So the idea is state what they're going to get, and when they look at it, you want them to go, yes, you totally get me. You get me. And by the way, this is very powerful in creating trust. If you ask them, like, remember, I'm asking them, I'm interviewing everybody, I'm facilitating, I'm creating clarity and alignment. If then I put a document back in front of them that doesn't sound like what they asked for, what did I just do? Completely eroded trust. They're like, that guy's not listening to me.
Right.
And my job as subject matter expert or the doctor, like I know what I've got to do as the doctor. I'm going to do the open heart surgery correctly. I mean, nobody does that anymore, but I'm going to do the bypass surgery correctly, right? But when I put in front of you like what you're going to get, you're going to be like, yes, that's what I want, which is the outcome. The benefits, I get to live longer, right? And again, it's our job to figure out how to state it in a way where we deliver what we know needs to be delivered and enhances them, right? And again, this isn't semantics, this isn't BS, it's really aligning and figuring out what you're really trying to do, right? We're not securing things for security's sake. No, that's not the goal here, right? So again, when you put this back in front of them and they read it, they're going to feel cared for, because there's only two ways that human beings can feel cared for, and that's through physical intimacy, which is illegal in the workplace. Don't do that. It's off. I'm making it very clear. No physical intimacy in the workplace. And through listening to them. And how do people know that you've listened to them? Like as an example, Neil, what do you drink coffee?
Obsessively.
Do you have a favorite like coffee shop vendor?
Death Wish?
Is that a coffee shop where I can go get you a coffee?
No, it's a coffee brand.
Oh, okay, so it's like a coffee brand. So
Yeah.
you guys, check this out. If there's ever a time that I meet Neil in person, and I hope that happens, and I literally bring him Death Wish coffee, he's gonna be like, this guy freaking gets me. Oh my God, I can't believe he remembers. But if I brought him like, I don't know, like donuts, is he gonna feel as cared for? Like it's like a gesture. But he didn't tell me he liked donuts. I'm just guessing. And he might even remember that one time I asked him what's his favorite coffee, and he's gonna be like, that guy didn't care. He didn't listen. He was just a talking head that came on the ISACA platform and didn't listen. Right? So remember, we show people that we care by listening to them. So when you put this back in front of them, and they read and it's like they're like yes, and they like ask to change one word. This isn't semantics. They feel like that will change the definition just enough to where they will be successful and they will get their bonus and they can take their family on the vacation to Maui that they've been wanting to take over the pandemic. Okay, they will feel cared for, and this builds trust. You guys thought I was going to talk about a whole bunch of nerdy project management stuff, huh?
No.
All right.
And Jason, we do have a question from Sarah. And is the journey story ever put in the charter?
Say more. Can you say more? Is the journey story?
Yeah,
I like that you're tying it to a story and the journey. You're speaking my language.
yeah, we just have is the journey story ever put in the charter? And
Well,
I interpret it possibly incorrectly, but like we were talking about leading with the end and
oh,
then how we're going to get there. That's what I interpreted it as.
okay. So again, here is the purpose. And the purpose could be migrate ServiceNow to BMC. Bad purpose, because that's not an outcome. Or the purpose could be deliver a platform that will enable us to provide concierge-like customer service, and we will get that, and then we can iterate upon that, because clearly that didn't work out the first time, or they wouldn't be replacing ServiceNow, right? So what's the real purpose? Keep it short. Documentation should be barely sufficient. And this is the what's going to be delivered and the why it's going to be delivered. This next section is how we're going to roll it out. So this is descriptive of the journey. We're going to do this first. We're going to do this second. I like the word journey, but frankly, you guys, when I work with IT departments and I use all that like, I don't know, like tree hugging language, they get super confused, right? Like I say your people and they're like, well, do you mean my employees? I'm like, yeah, kind of. I mean, your people. It's confusing. So here in the charter, we just use approach because everybody gets it. It's like the rules to winning the board game. Or more importantly, if you guys have ever followed a recipe in a cookbook, these would be the ingredients, right? And if you pulled all the ingredients together and threw them in a pot and turned it on, you might not end up with a tasty dish, okay? So you have to take the ingredients and then follow the instructions on how to prepare them and mix them to get a tasty outcome.
And
All right?
and Sarah did add the story you give to inspire leadership buy-in, for buy-in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the purpose.
Yeah, and I think that orbits around the why.
Yeah, that's the purpose. That definitely drives that.
Cool.
All
Hope
right,
that helps,
so
Sarah. If not,
moving
just let me know.
moving on to the next section. Here we have in scope. These are just smaller buckets than objectives. And what you guys can see here is we drop the objectives that are meaningful to our stakeholders down, and then we created buckets of scope items. For those of you that have some project management experience, this is the WBS. And there's gonna be a magical outcome to this in a minute. And then we've got out of scope. This is just anything that people might assume is in scope, or anything that at one point you talked about being in scope and then decided would be out of scope. And the reason that you want to add that is because all of us have been in a meeting where we said we'd do something, and then later we said in another meeting that we weren't going to do it, but everybody that was in the first meeting might not have been there. And then 6 months later, that person that wasn't there is freaking out because we're not delivering the thing that they thought they needed, and this is going to get put in front of everybody. So we put what has been eliminated in this section. And then lastly, assumptions, risk, constraints.
We have another question.
Okay.
From Jose. From the previous slide, how the objective is different from the outcome?
What do you mean the outcome? It's not. The objectives are the outcomes, and the scope items are even more granular outcomes.
Okay. So the objective and outcome are synonymous.
Well,
No.
that's I was going to say, because it's, the outcome is like, that's the thing you're really trying to sell, or, to get people to understand this is my benefit. It's not, I'm switching systems, it's, I'm going to do it more efficiently. That's the actual outcome. The objectives are how I get to that outcome. Isn't
Yes.
that what you would say?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Objectives are high level hows, or things that will be done, because the thing that will be done is like a how, right? Like, I'm going to deploy this module in BMC. Like, that's got to be clear to the people delivering it. We also have to make clear the why, but we started with the why, right? They are different things. Just like ingredients are not the instructions to making the tasty dish, right? So objectives are big things that need to be done to achieve the purpose, which is the outcome that Neil was just talking about. Scope items are smaller buckets, and under the scope items we have tasks. I will explain this in 2 slides from now, how they're different, but they are much more granular. So stick with me. I want to finish the charter. We're not going to get to planning today, just because of the condensed time frame, but that's okay. Hopefully I'm going to give you guys some super nuggets. All right, assumptions, constraints, and potential impediments. This is actually the most misunderstood, yet my favorite section of the charter. So usually people put things in here that are meaningless, like things that frustrate people, like, like if the executives don't approve the budget, the project won't get done. And then when that executive reads that, they're like, yeah, thank you for taking 20 seconds of my life that I'll never get back to read something that's super obvious, right? But the purpose of this is that a lot of what we do is predicated on assumptions. I'm going to give an IT example because I'm with my people. You guys will get this. It's an old example, but you'll get it. So I once had a project where I had to deploy a bunch of monitoring tools to like an IT ecosystem. Now, these monitoring tools are monitoring different things, and they all maybe alert different teams. But the problem is, if the network goes down, it's going to trigger the system monitoring tools, right? It basically triggers everything. Nothing's working. So they wanted to bolt on this intelligence engine that would like correlate the outcomes and just inform the right people as to not getting a whole bunch of people involved and making a mess and changing things, right? So call it the correlation engine and the monitoring tools. This is the whole project, right? So I get to this section and I'm like, okay, let's talk about the assumptions. They're like, what do you mean? I said, okay, let me start. So we're assuming that these monitoring products made by one company will work with the correlation engine made by another company. And they said, no, Jay, it'll totally work. And I was like, how do you know? And they were like, because the salespeople told us it would. By the way, I did not make that up. That actually happened, and I love sharing it because that's exactly what they said to me. I did what you did. I laughed, but they didn't understand why I was laughing because they did not find it funny. And I said, okay, did they give you an example of where it was working? And they said, and by the way, the companies I'm about to name are not the company that I was at. They were like, it's working over at NBC Universal and it's working over at First American Financial. And I said, okay, let me ask you a question. I said, is your dev and test and production environments, are they all the same? And this is a really embarrassing question to ask IT departments. It's the dirty little secret that only IT departments know, and that's that they should be. But the complexity of actually making that happen is very, very difficult, right? It may be getting better, I don't know, but the answer was like, no. And I was like, so what, just because it works, so are our environments like their environments? And they were like, I see what you're saying. I was like, so the idea is, what are we being optimistic about that might go wrong? Because in identifying the assumptions, we identify then the potential things that could go wrong, and we come up with mitigating strategies to make sure that they never occur. This sounded very good to them. They were like, oh, so we identify the things that could go wrong up front, and then we make sure they never happen. I was like, yeah. They were like, well, all the past project managers just wanted to write down all the things that could go wrong and what we would do if they went wrong. And I was like, well, which team's better? And they were like, making sure that things don't go wrong. And we Zoom high-fived all day long. No, this was really in person before the Zoom. Everybody give me a Zoom high-five just because they feel good. Ah! Come on, Neil, man. Try it one more time. Zoom high-five. Give it to me. Ah! Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. All right, so we listed optimistically all the things that like would be beautiful outcomes that are really assumptions and not fact, like are not certain. right? And so therefore, you guys have seen a ton of charters. There's never like a lot of assumptions. Given the complexity of what you guys do and the amount of uncertainty, it should be the contrary. Like there should be a ton of assumptions. So what you do is for each of these assumptions, you have here the potential impediment, because remember, we're going to develop a mitigation strategy that are steps that we will put in the plan to make sure that they never occur. So let's pretend like the impediment is these two things don't work. This is the potential impediment that we were optimistically incorrect with our assumption. These two things don't work. What would that cost us? Well, you guys, let's break this down. Well, we're at a standstill because this is our whole project. So what are our options? Well, we could call in the runner-up vendors. We evaluated several other products on both sides, both the monitoring and the correlation side. I was like, okay, cool. Why did we pick this one? And they were like, because it was the cheapest. That was another IT joke, but none of you laughed because you live with this all the time. That was probably like me picking at like a wound. I'm sorry. They were like,
Yeah,
so
that was more painful.
I'm sorry, you guys. I feel it too. I feel it too. All right, so they're like, because it was the cheapest, and I'm like, well, okay. So if we do nothing and we just hope, like hope is a strategy, and these things don't work, and we've got to call back these other vendors, are they going to be available? No, their professional services manager is going to be making sure these people are billable. More importantly, we've rejected them. So they're like, man, now you need us to bail. You pick the other vendor, now you need us to bail you out. Like we're burning time and money. And in this particular case, we were deploying a monitoring system to a colo location, and essentially the ERP system was going down constantly, and this was DirecTV. And when that system went down, they couldn't take orders from customers. And so the cost of the system being down was like millions of dollars, like a minute. All right. So it would go down, and the vendor would say it's you, and DirecTV would say no, it's you. And so this is why we're deploying the monitoring, right? So we need to get it deployed as quickly as possible because we need to figure out what the problem is so we can solve the problem, right? Because there's a lot of money at stake. So I was like, I ran through like how long it would take and what it costs, and then they're getting started from scratch, and we made up some numbers. And it was like a bigger number than the number I'm going to share with you. So I said, okay, are we paying for a proof of concept with the current vendor, right? They give me the SOW, and they're like, yeah, they're going to build it in a lab. We're going to test it. I was like, how long is it going to take? And they were like, a week. And I was like, what's it going to cost? And they were like, $10,000. I was like, cool. How about I go to the other vendor, the runner-up vendors, and I say, look, I want to give you guys another opportunity. Okay, I want you guys to build in the lab. My understanding is to do this costs $10,000. I'll get approval to pay you $5,000. You guys eat the other $5,000, you get another opportunity to prove your software in a lab up against the competition. They were like, Jay, that sounds good. So I wrote that in as my mitigation strategy, and I put $5,000 in my budget. Now you guys are all thinking, I can't just decide that. I totally agree. I can't just decide that, okay? But when I finished my definition and then my definition, I put this in front of the project owner, right? My Dave that gets to decide who's really on the hook here, right? Who either gets his bonus and gets to go to Maui or doesn't get his bonus and doesn't get to go to Maui, right? And Dave said to me, what's this going to cost? And I said, it's going to cost us $5,000. He's like, but it's a waste of $5,000 if it works. I said, cool, let's talk about how much it's going to cost if it doesn't work. The number was significantly bigger, even though we were making it up. And Dave said, you know what? Leave it in. Let me run it up the flagpole once we get it planned. And you know what everybody universally decided? Leave it in. Spend the $5,000. It's better than any insurance. Now, sadly, it was a little like Y2K. The people that we had selected first succeeded, and that got deployed. But again, the idea is to identify what could go wrong, come up with strategies to ensure that they don't happen, and then identify the associated time and expense and decide whether it's valuable or not, or if we want to take the risk. This should sound very familiar to you guys.
It does. Yeah.
All right, so we are at 12:54. We're going to end with we communicate to lead. The next would be diving into planning the project, which is where we create the work plan and all the tasks. But before we dive in there, what I wanted to show you guys is, here's the chart that we were just looking at. You guys see it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I've got to believe that what I'm about to describe has happened to at least one of you guys over the years. It happens, unfortunately, more frequently than I'd like in the project management community. Not on my team, but more frequently than I'd like, where a project gets finished and somebody asks the question, did we do everything we said we were going to do? This is a very bad day for a project manager, right? Because the idea is if they're saying the project is finished, we should have done everything we said we were going to do. And if the people asking are not clear that we did everything we said we were going to do, did we deliver? No, the answer is no, because we communicate to lead. Okay, so what you see here is the objective, and this objective is written right here in the work plan. Big bucket of work. This big bucket of work is security services support, policies and procedures establishment. Oh my God, I forgot. This was an InfoSec project. And yeah, it was way back, way back. And so then under that, there were several products that we were deploying. There was Zen, Icebox, and Blackbox. I've changed the names, but for those of you that have been around a while, you might know what I'm talking about. And now this isn't a one-to-one, right? It ideally is a one-to-one. Ideally, you'd see the objective here, and then the scope items here. Because remember, these are the things that the executives think that they need to get the outcome that they need to be successful, right? They even changed a couple of words. And so therefore, we want to provide status on these things. We don't want to provide status on things that don't make sense to them, right? We don't want to provide status on phases, like we're 50% done with defining, we're 75% done with deployment. You know, across 75 projects, they don't even know what we're talking about. But they helped us define these. These came right out of their heads. We developed a language and we communicate to lead. So what we do is we take them, we put them over here, and as we complete the tasks underneath them, it rolls up percentage complete to scope items and objectives, buckets of work that are meaningful to them. Now, why is there 2 here and 5 here? Because from an Agile perspective, we know human nature is that the sooner we succeed or fail, the better our reputation remains. Executives, all of us as leaders lose credibility when something's on track for 6 or 7 weeks and then goes south. Now, again, we all know that that is totally possible, but I'd prefer to break my wins up into smaller buckets. And so I've got something that went for 2 weeks, successful. Something goes for 3 weeks, successful. Something goes for 2 weeks, fails. Because they're more likely to believe that we couldn't have seen it coming. But if something has gone on for 7 weeks, because I think if I did the math, I just said 7 things, broke it up into different scope items, right? So it's again, we succeed, and then something doesn't go right. They're much more likely to be okay, but if they're just waiting, and then something goes wrong, they're like, where were you? How'd you let that happen? Right? Psychology plays into leadership, right? So we have a rule that you have to break these down to no longer than 4 weeks. And so when we built the tasks underneath these 2 scope items, they were more than 4 weeks. So we broke them down, but let's look, they still correlate. This says establish of Zen software distribution, inventory, and remote control policies. This says establish Zen software distribution policy, Zen software inventory policy, Zen remote control policy. So these 3 tie directly back to this, and like my son, my 10-year-old son would get it. I mean, he wouldn't know what any of that means, but he'd see that they correlate, right? So that way, as we're completing the tasks, it rolls up status to things that are meaningful, and we communicate to lead. And more importantly, when the project's over, nobody's going to be like, did we do everything we said we were going to do? Because we're literally checking it off task by task and rolling it up. And the great thing about having a plan is when things don't go according to plan, which is all the time, we immediately know it and can use the plan to forecast the impact of progress, lack of progress, and impediments to the end date and cost to make real-time decisions to control a future outcome. The whole point of having a plan is knowing how you would get there ideally. Then knowing when things aren't going according to plan so you can problem solve, as opposed to crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Again, hope is not a strategy. So I would like you guys all to repeat after me. We communicate to lead. And even though that
communicate to lead.
We communicate to lead.
Yeah,
right on.
You communicate to lead, not me.
I don't believe you, Neil. I'd follow you, man.
Hey,
I don't want the responsibility. No.
we do have another question that just came in. Do you have all the tasks identified before the kickoff of the project?
This is a great question. So, do we have all the tasks identified before the official kickoff of the project? No, and this was a failed approach back in the old project management days. That's how project management originally lost, and now people are bringing us back because they realize that we were relevant. This is how grown people bought into all you need is Agile. Listen, it was a good Beatles song, but it is not true about Agile. Okay. And so, Agile has its place, and Agile is awesome. And in fact, you can adopt all those principles in enterprise project management technique, which is what we're looking at today. But so here's the thing, especially in the United States, we have a propensity for wanting to start the work. We want to start the work. And if you tell people they can't start the work, you lose credibility. So I'm like, hey, if you want to work, cool, I'm going to plan, and I'm going to invite you to plan. And at some point, I'll get the plan done. I'll check off everything that you did so far, and then we'll follow the plan. So, and by the way, when the plan is done, we do the official kickoff, but I would never tell anybody don't start the work, because even though I know what they're doing is inefficient, even though they think, hey, the fastest way to complete it is to start the work, I know what they're doing is inefficient. If I try to stop them, I'm going to create a human obstacle and a perception obstacle. So I'm like, you want to start? Start. Just make sure you show up to my planning meetings, because as soon as we get a plan, then we have alignment and we're marching to the plan.
Got it. No, and that makes perfect sense because, like you said, it keeps the vision clear. It keeps the people engaged. And like you said, you've initially you're earning their trust.
Yeah. And
Go
for
ahead.
that matter, it's not like the old days where we're planning 2-3 year projects, because that was a terrible idea. And today things change so fast. When we go to somebody and they're like, we've got like a 9-month project, we're like, okay. If they're like, we've got like, we think it's a year, we think it's a year and a half, we're like, let's plan the first 9 months, right? So planning doesn't take 3-4 months. Planning should take, at worst, a month and a half, 2 months on the largest, most complex projects, like, I don't know, Oracle Fusion implementation for a global company, or ServiceNow to BMC.
Well,
So you get that plan done fast.
Yeah, it kind of goes to the example you were showing recently, the other slide, where it was, you had the objective, establish X, but then under your planning, you had more than what you had in your plan. So, I mean, that's where it changes, it grows over time.
Yes.
I have a question regarding when you're, like a lot of when you're putting at, positive benefits, what are my blockers and or, barriers? A lot of it has, a lot of times people list all the technical stuff.
Yeah.
What about the non-technical? Do you account for that in your plans? So for example, when I say non-technical, the 2 words that come to mind, culture, bureaucracy, how they can interfere or prevent things from happening. And the best example I could come up with is change. Anytime we're doing change, people are resistant to it.
Yeah.
So how do you, do you identify it, and do you recommend people address it?
Okay. So I am one of your people. Like, I'm A-type, I'm a pragmatist, and I'm also almost 50. So I've learned a lot of lessons by being my natural self. And so first, these days, I'm a leader. If it would serve us for me to identify that in a charter, like for example, most projects die in our Germany office, and they just beat the crap out of us, right? This is definitely a reality for a client or 2 of mine, not necessarily Germany, but like, right? I even heard it said that, like, they've killed more IT projects than, anyway. So it's a reality. Is a great assumption in that case then that office is going to cooperate? Yes. Is it the potential impediment that they don't? Yes. Should there be a mitigating strategy, meaning we work with them, we communicate up front, we like get their buy-in, we know it's going to be a problem, so we don't wait for it to be a problem, like we get ahead of it, we get them pumped, we get them excited? Yes. Now, if I can put that in the charter and not have it backfire on me, I totally will. However, if one of my stakeholders is going to have to sign off on the charter, or if somebody's going to go tattle on me and get me in trouble before I do the right thing, I probably won't put it in the charter, but I will make sure that my stakeholders that need to know and my team members that need to know, and I might just not put it in my charter, but in my change management plan or my communication plan, without addressing that it could be a problem, I'm going to address it with an amazing change management plan, right? So
Thank you.
I will write it down if it wouldn't backfire on me, but I can write it down in a different way
I get
by
that
creating
part
the
too.
solution. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're putting you're pulling back the trigger on your own gun when you put things in sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a good, I mean, it's those things that it's not the technology that gets in our way. It's the culture, it's the people, it's their confirmation bias. I mean, and so this is, that's why I think the whole field of change management came out of, we can't do it like we do it in project management, because then we're just going to say things that are going to get us in trouble. So let's just talk about it in a room and come up with a strategy to mitigate it that makes everybody feel good. And that's our change management plan, not our charter. All right, it's 1:05. Any other
Yeah.
questions, comments?
There were a couple that came in, and I was actually just answering them as we go. It was, what does GSD stand for?
Oh, so PG version is get stuff done.
Yeah, I did not communicate the PG version.
Oh, okay. So rated R version is get shit done.
Yeah, I went. That's where I went. And one Sarah had to leave, but did say thank you for the meeting. This is really interesting. So.
Right on. Thank you, Sarah. All right, everybody. I hope we'll get the workshop thing sorted out. I feel like I gave a lot in a very short period of time, but just know the workshop is still going to be like packed with excitement and content, and you guys will get to break out and practice some of this stuff.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic, and you and I have known each other for a handful of years now, and I always value, love, and appreciate the perspective that you bring to things. So thank you as well. And like you said, I'll work with you and Mina to figure out what's happening with the coupon, and anybody can email us directly at the chapter, but we'll send out a follow-up email blast to everybody that we've got on the list once we get those identified and made available.
Cool.
And also to make sure that we don't go past capacity, so anybody that's interested has access.
Cool. I'm going to call Mina right now. For those of you guys that were participating with me, give yourselves a Zoom high five. And I hope to see you soon.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Jason. As always, much appreciated, and this has been great.
Pleasure, you guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your day.
And thank you, Neil and Aparna. Great to see
Oh,
you.
yeah, definitely. Great time. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks, you
Right
guys,
on.
for participating.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.